I'm divorcing my wife for having a baby that clearly isn't mine, but I'm worried about how my sons will treat their half-sister. My wife gave birth to a black baby girl a month ago. Because we're both white, she had no choice but to disclose that the kid was the product of a one-night fling last year. I've initiated divorce procedures, but we're still living together for the time being. With our two sons, ages 2 and 4, my paternity tests for them coming back positive, her baby daughter, and her job loss to be COVID, living together as pleasantly as possible until the divorce is finalized is a sad necessity. Naturally, I have no ill will toward the infant, but I've been appalled by some of the remarks I've heard from family members, friends, colleagues, and others, all of whom seem concentrated on the racial aspect of this. As though the most significant aspect of this isn't that my wife strayed, but that she cheated with a black guy and had a black kid. What scares me the most is that my two boys could pick up on these stories. They're too little to really comprehend what's going on right now, but I'm concerned that when they have a better understanding of the situation, they'll come to hate their half-sister for breaking up their parents' marriage. Worse, under the influence of the aforementioned racist myths, their animosity may manifest itself in a racist manner. Any ideas on how I should attempt to persuade my kid to change his mind? It definitely doesn't help that we live in a suburb with few black people and my children's half-sister is the only black person they know. Update 1. My wife and I are now divorcing, but I have requested her to recognize me as the adoptive father of her kid, not mine biologically. We've reached an agreement, and we're pushing for 50/50 split custody. My wife doesn't have a photo of my real father since she just knows his first name and is unable to locate or contact him. Also, although my wife has accepted, I'm not sure whether she's legally of sound mind to consent to this. She has PPD and had major depression even before the baby was born, is sleep deprived, and the entire divorce and reaction from family and friends has really taken a toll on her. I'm concerned that if she agrees to this now, but later changes her mind, it may be revoked owing to her present mental condition. Update 2. My previous post was unfortunately closed, however I got a lot of helpful PM from individuals. I'm especially grateful to individuals who have experienced a similar circumstance, or have relatives and friends who have, and provided me advice on how it impacted them and how to negotiate the issue. I'd also want to thank the hundreds of racists who blasted my email. The most important lesson for me was that if I had to lead by example here, I would not exclude her in any manner because of her paternity so that she and my boys would perceive her as a complete part of the family. Also, in order to protect their sister, I need to be more active in fighting the racist and stupid rubbish I've been hearing, and I need to encourage my kids to do the same. I've talked to some of those responsible subsequently and made it plain that she is to be regarded like a part of the family, and that if I ever find out that they said anything like that to my boys or their sister, they would no longer be permitted near us. I've spoken to my wife about it, and we're pretty much on the same page. She's been pleading with me to forgive her and avoid the divorce, but that's not going to happen. Even if I didn't think her adultery was inexcusable, I simply don't feel any love for her anymore, other than platonic admiration for her as my children's mother. My boys are handling the situation well. The 4-year-old does not really comprehend, but is distressed by the shift in the home. Fortunately, he is readily distracted. Thankfully, the 2-year-old is too little to understand what's going on, but he has seen how reclusive his mother has become. They're both enthralled with their new baby sister, so there's that silver lining. My wife, on the other hand, is in terrible form. She was sad before the delivery, and now that everything has come to light, our divorce, her adultery being disclosed, and the anger from family and friends, PPD, and the stress of parenting an infant, hardly she's functioning. She's seeing a therapist, and I've been pleading with some of our relatives and friends to be supportive of her because, even if they believe she deserves it, her present condition is making things difficult for me and our children. It's become clear to me that even when the divorce is official, we'll have to cohabitate for a little longer. She's in no condition to care for 3 children on her alone, and I'm not willing to deprive her of her boys by requesting sole custody. It's also too challenging financially since she lost her work due to COVID. The newborn girl, on the other hand, is healthy and relatively simple to care for by infant standards. I've connected with her since I've been assisting with her care, and my wife and I have explored the prospect of adopting her. She is unable to contact the father since all she knows about him is his first name. And, given our co-parenting arrangement, it seems like adopting her as my daughter would be the greatest conclusion for everyone involved, but there's a snag in that plan. It was brought to my notice that there could be a possibility to discover the baby's father, which is to get her DNA analyzed by Ancestry DNA. If his father or a relative has already done the test, we may be able to track him down using the DNA match database. If I'm really honest, this does not sit well with me. I've already begun to consider the newborn girl to be my daughter, and having him in our life would significantly disrupt the family dynamic. Plus, we live in Seattle and he met her in Philadelphia, so I'm not sure how they'd make it work if he wanted to be the child's father. But I realize that this is a self-serving response. If we have a possibility of locating her biological father, we owe it to her to do so, if only so she may access her paternal medical data and establish a connection with him if she so desires. I've read a few tales of children raised by non-biological parents, and the yearning to see their lost biological parent is a frequent theme. So there you have it. We've purchased an Ancestry DNA kit for her, and I'm guessing we'll determine what to do next once we receive the findings in a few months. Story 2. Caught him with his coworker. My partner, male 20, had lately been caught improperly contacting other ladies and paying for cam girls, so I, female 20, was definitely on high alert. We were living together, had a cat, and I wore a ring on my finger. We'd recently returned from a disastrous couple's holiday. I found him with another woman's hands on him in the hotel bar, and things went south from there. He assured me it was all in my head and that I was overreacting, but I kept an eye on him after that. I had his iPhone location, which he must have forgotten, but he informed me one night that he was working late. I was concerned since he lied to me about the time he began working, so I investigated his whereabouts. I felt my stomach sink as he was across the city at a site we would visit, an overlook of the city skyline. I didn't want to be crazy. Maybe he was simply emptying his mind, but I couldn't get the sensation that it wasn't entirely benign. I was at home, making him a pie and preparing for him to get home from work like a 1950s housewife. I got in my vehicle and went to his place, where I parked a little distance away. I could see him. It was dark, and he seemed to be alone. For a brief time, I felt like an idiot for having doubted him. Then he stepped to the side, and I noticed he was holding a lady. I was taken aback. I was paralyzed. All I could do was wait for my brain to absorb for a few minutes. He gave her a kiss. I took out my phone and dialed his number. I saw him say something to her, and they took a step apart from each other. She was aware. He let it go to voicemail before texting me. I suppose I'm going to see my mom tonight. That wasn't the first time I'd gotten that SMS. I then observed them re-enter one another's arms. I got out of my vehicle and began approaching towards him. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I couldn't stand it any longer. She raced away as soon as they saw me. He'd inquired as to what I was doing there, as if nothing was amiss. He didn't have any answers to any of my queries. He didn't even exhibit any emotion, just standing there with emotionless eyes while I sobbed. He said it was all my fault, that I was to blame. I was too angry with him. He felt he couldn't communicate to me, and I was difficult. He stood there, taking no responsibility, and just informed me that it was all my fault. She simply sat on a nearby seat with her legs crossed, listening to the whole event. He introduced me to her as a colleague who had just joined the organization. She was easy to chat to and always had time for him. They spent the night and the following day together after I departed. That was 2 days ago, and I've been repeating the scene in my thoughts ever since. I'm sick to my stomach and can't force myself to eat, sleep, or wash. I can't even weep anymore. I'm still in shock and don't know what to do next.